Okay, good evening. It is about 7:05, so I think we have a quorum and we're going to call this meeting to order. A few of our other members might join us later, hopefully. It is Tuesday, December the 16th, and this is a meeting of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission here at the City of Urbana. So I'll call the meeting to order and we will start with a roll call.
Brandon Bowersox Johnson.
Present.
Carrie Brown Tess. Michelle Guerra. Stacy DiLorenzo. Cynthia Hoyle. Here. Audrey Ishii. Susan Jones. Nadine Schmitz. Here. Craig Schonkweiler.
Here.
Okay, well, we have a quorum. We will proceed. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve tonight's agenda? It was distributed, it came an email from Fami a few days ago, and if you want to make a motion that we proceed with this agenda, that'd be great.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion by Cynthia and second by Craig. Any comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, we will proceed then as planned. Public input is the first item, and I don't know that anybody's here to speak to us tonight. Okay, we will move on into our business items for tonight's meeting then. We have 4 new business items, and we will start with A. This is a discussion of the bylaws for this commission, and especially about public input.
Brandon,
yeah.
can we approve the minutes?
Oh, thank you. Yep, I completely skipped over that. Approval of minutes from our previous meeting. Those were distributed from our September meeting, and I wonder if anybody has corrections or comments. None? Okay, would somebody like to make a motion to approve those minutes?
I can't, I wasn't here. So moved.
Okay, by Nadine. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Craig. Any final comments? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, those minutes are approved. Thank you. Okay, so back to the business items. First, this bylaws item about the bylaws for this commission and for public input. Who's here to speak to this tonight? Craig,
Well,
do you want to maybe give us
everybody's looking at me, yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
we'll
I'll
make
speak.
you give us the quick background here.
I'll speak to this. Well, all city commissions are requested to develop bylaws for public input. So we asked our recording secretary, Fami Washington, to develop the bylaws. And this is in draft form. It would be ideal if we could act on these tonight. If we can't, that's fine. If we want to take input and make revisions and bring it back to the group later next month, we can do that too. So basically, it's sort of an official record of how the chair primarily would conduct the meeting with respect to public input.
Yeah. It all seemed reasonable to me, but let's take any questions or feedback. Cynthia?
So, we have current bylaws?
Fami?
We do not have current bylaws.
Okay.
However, we have been instructed to get some. So specifically with regard to public input because of Open Meetings Act regulations. And so this is a draft form of bylaws specifically for public input, but we can certainly draft more universal bylaws at a later time.
Any other input or comments on these?
I think since we are missing so many of our members, we ought to think about voting on this next time. That's
Yeah, that's completely fine. Is there any feedback or changes we want to ask for? I know it seemed pretty reasonable and I'm comfortable with the way things were worded, but if there's any feedback we want to kind of ask staff to think about.
And we can do that tonight, and we can also, you can just send it straight to Fami.
Okay. Okay, so sending email would be fine too.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, if there's no other input on those, then yeah, let's put them back on the agenda for next time when we just have a few more members and take a final vote when we have a bigger crowd here. Any other comments on that one before we move on? Okay, let's go to item B on tonight's agenda, about the Gold Level Bike Friendly Community Award. And okay, Kevin's going to talk about this one.
Yes, so I have great news, everybody. In case you were unaware, Urbana became one of the 25 communities in the U.S. to achieve gold level or higher recognition from the League of American Bicyclists. So this is actually a pretty big deal. I think a lot of times I'm skeptical about awards that you have to apply for, but I think that if you're doing really high quality bicycle work in your community, you're going to apply for this. So I think it's pretty safe to say that we are one of the top communities in terms of bicycle friendliness in the country. So I just wanted to just thank everybody for all the work that's been put in over the past, 8 or more years in turning Urbana into a more bicycle-friendly community, and there's a huge award. The RPC really helped us out with getting the application together, so we want to thank them for that. And just, so many people were involved in making this happen, and it's really a huge deal. We got a scorecard that I handed out to everybody that I'm sure you all received in your email. I also handed out a neat infographic that I'm not sure if everybody has seen that shows the building blocks of a bicycle-friendly community. And as you can see from looking at the scorecards, we're doing some things really well. There are some areas for improvement, but in terms of, if you look at the scorecard, and the 10 building blocks that they identify there, we're meeting the standard for the next level for platinum. We're actually already meeting 4 of those. We're exceeding in 2 of those, and then we're still a little short in 4 other areas. I think it's really impressive that we're actually at what would be considered diamond level for our percent of schools offering bicycling education. 95% is huge. If we could make it 100%, that'd be really great. But yeah, just wanted to share. I know most of you have seen the scorecard already, and I think that and Cynthia, you might know more about this, but I think in January, are we going to get a more detailed report? Okay, so we'll probably have more to discuss in January on how we're actually meeting these different areas. But I think this is very encouraging to see. And yes.
Yeah, I think that we should be applauding and have confetti and blow horns. It's a pretty impressive accomplishment, and the things that we are low on is arterial streets with bike lanes and total bicycle network mileage to total road network mileage compared to the other communities in that category. I think that we got credit for the large amount of our system that we put in a short time period, because we only started this 6-7 years ago.
Construction, and dedicated bike lanes, really 6 or 7.
It really, the bike plan and all of the efforts that have been undertaken, we've made rapid progress. So I think that that's something that we need to take a look at. We have the bike plan that will be coming up, and so we ought to take a hard look at that and see if we think we're going to accomplish what we are setting out to do for the future. I think achieving platinum level is going to be another leap, and we can do that, but we'll have to knuckle down and work hard and be creative, because we have limited right-of-way on a lot of our older roads, and so we'll have to take a look at how we provide people with access in those locations. But I was very excited that we've accomplished that. The other thing that we have to work on is our bike program staff to population. And as our staff knows, we've been operating with time from this staff person and that staff person. That's something that all of the communities are struggling with. Because we're two communities in an area of 140,000 population, it means each city has the staff needed to operate, whereas if you were a city of 140,000, you might have people who are more specialized. But we don't have that, so we have to think about how to do that and partner perhaps with other entities in the community to think about how to pull that off. The university comes to mind, and if they want to move up on their rating, they have some steps that they need to work on as well. So I'm extremely happy and very impressed that we accomplished this, and say great work to everybody, all of the staff, some staff who aren't here anymore. A lot of people put a lot of time into accomplishing what we've done. And it sounds overwhelming when you hear what we've done in the time period that we've done it, but we just took it one step at a time, and a lot of people contributed, and it was a partnership among a lot of organizations.
Yeah. I think I'll add, or I'll draw your attention to, I think it's the sixth building block on the score sheet that was handed out. It says Active Bicycle Advisory Committee. Platinum level is simply yes, and our score is very. So thank you all for being a very active bicycle advisory committee.
Yeah, I agree. It's really impressive being at gold and being recognized for that, and I find it incredibly helpful that there are these key steps to platinum and sort of like, okay, what are the areas we're still weak on that we need to work on next as a community, and we can talk when the bike plan comes then about, okay, what are there missing elements and next key steps that we need to make sure is worked into our next round of planning. So so that's super helpful. Any other questions, feedback, comments on this?
I think we probably should say, for those who are not aware, that this is a League of American Bicyclists program, and that we incubated the current director of that program here, Amelia Neptune, was at the University of Illinois and served. Didn't she serve on our advisory commission?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and now she works and runs the Bicycle Friendly America program. One of the other things I would like to see us do more of is provide more support for businesses applying for bicycle friendly business status. It's really it's a much easier process than it is for community or university, but I think businesses just need to be encouraged to do it. And another thing I think would be really great for our community to take a look at is having our downtown become a bicycle-friendly business district. And that's not a designation through the League of American Bicyclists, but I think it's a designation that would bring more attention to our downtown business district. And it is a bicycle-friendly business district, so I think we just need to take a look at how that is put together and whether we can call ourselves that.
Mm-hmm. That's a cool idea. Any other comments? Okay, well, it sounds like maybe, Kevin, when the scorecard or any more detailed information comes out, you'll coordinate with Fami and Craig and get it in the packet. I'd love to, read the detailed version and just think through other areas we need to be working on.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
One last thought is they've got key steps to platinum is to build out the Kickapoo Trail, and so it would be helpful, I think, for us to know how we can facilitate connecting Urbana to the Kickapoo Trail as that is being built, and maybe get more information. Have we had a presentation on the Kickapoo Trail from St. Joe to Urbana?
Oh, no, we haven't.
I think that might be something that would be interesting to have a presentation on.
Of note, there is talk within the agencies of hiring a consultant to look at the trailhead connection there with the trail to get it over to Weaver Park. That's ideally where the Park District would like to have a trailhead there.
Yeah.
There's just some infrastructure hurdles that have to be overcome to get that in.
Yeah.
But I think there's momentum for a study to look into that.
That would be great. So that would be like the city and the parks here collaborating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing is later on here we will announce a community-wide type of event or celebration when this is formally announced later on. So look for that in the future. And then we're going to be ordering new bike-friendly signs. There's like 8 or 9 of them around entry points to the city. So we'll be ordering those and putting those up too.
Great. Yeah, on the Kickapoo Trail piece, I definitely think that having a consultant, someone to look at the details of how to make that connection would be great, because we are only responsible for a very small portion of the trail, but a key connection here on this end. So,
Right.
and yeah, if it's ever something that BPAC can help with, whether it's a presentation or even, I don't know, a fundraiser, ribbon cutting, or any of those kind of events, feel free to send those out to this group, and we can try to help support where we can. And I know they need a lot of volunteers for things, and all kinds of ways we could contribute. So, okay, well, with that, let's shift gears to the next item. Is item C, the 2015 Public Works projects, and Craig is here to talk about this, and I think you gave us a couple maps here on our desks.
Yes. As you know, I'm Craig Schunkweiler, Assistant City Engineer with the Public Works Department. And I wanted to talk to you about what we're planning to do infrastructure-wise in 2015. But before we do that, I want to back up a second and talk to you a little bit about what we did in 2014. We'll reflect on that, and then we'll move to 15 and talk about where we're going in the future. The first map that I handed out is it's actually a figure. It's page 26 of our capital improvement program plan from the 2014 construction. And I'll just kind of walk through the city here, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the major projects that we built last year and what kind of bike infrastructure we installed, or pedestrian infrastructure, which often we don't talk about so much. Up here on the northeast corner of the city, we have Airport Road, which a lot of people don't realize that road is a city. Part of it is a city road. We do get asked a lot of questions. Route 45 here is the middle here where the signal is. And then there's a gap piece. That is not in the city. That's actually in the township. And then we pick up basically it's near the mobile home park there. And then we run for basically a little over 3,600 feet. And that portion right there in the middle, that is in the city. That last year was a road that was, quite frankly, it was an old oil and chip road that was just falling apart. So we went and completely rebuilt that road. When we did that, we installed a new pavement, but we also installed 4-foot asphalt shoulders on the side, which can be used for primarily bicyclists, but also pedestrians in between the two subdivisions up there, Landis Farm and Somerset. In between Landis Farm Road and Skyline Drive, we also installed a 5-foot sidewalk there to provide sidewalk connectivity within that subdivision. We often get asked why didn't we put a sidewalk between the two subdivisions. This is rural ground here, and that is really a developer-built type of sidewalk in the future. That, quite frankly, is whenever you see gaps in the sidewalk system, usually that's was the case years ago, where basically per an agreement or there was a deferral or whatever, it comes out to where that's where the developer, whenever they would develop that land, would be required to put the sidewalk in. But when we can put them in with a road project, we do that. Moving on down, and I'll talk mainly that the dash lines are planning lines, and we'll have another map for that one on the left there, the Airport West project. But over here on Cunningham, this project here between Perkins and Kenyon Road, we had planned on installing an 8-foot shared use path on the east side of the road. That did not get built in 2014, but it is planned to be built in 2015. That's a much needed connection. You'll see a goat path there on the east side where people have walked. And there is no really safe area for them to walk. On the west side, we will install a sidewalk. So at least within this arterial road, it will give some safe place between these two major roads to get off the road and at least right on a shared use path. Going on down and over to the east, we have a major road construction project, which is the 130 reconstruction, primarily over near Walmart. And that is actually a city project, even though 130 is a state route. The project actually runs through the city of Urbana Public Works. And within that project, Washington Street, we were able to get that road reconstructed. That one was another tired road. That one, the initial part of the pavement has been constructed. There will be a final lift placed next year. The project's pretty much shut down for winter at this point, but next year on Washington, from Pfeffer to the 130 intersection, we will be installing bike lanes. So there will be some bike lanes on that. There isn't a plan to put signals at Washington and High Cross, and that's because they do not meet the criteria for signals at this time.
I have a quick question about that area.
Sure.
Okay, so on Washington, I also noticed that, I guess where it's MacArthur, or no, it's the area just
To the west of
west.
there.
Yeah, it seems really dark. And I found kids, I was driving and there were kids riding their bike,
Mhm.
salmoning actually, which was especially dangerous when it was dark. So, are we thinking of incorporating maybe some lighting in there as well if we're going to be making it?
There are currently no plans to
Okay.
install lighting. We have a lot of dark areas within the city that we recognize. Basically, when we do install lighting, because we're fiscally constrained, it comes down to grants or such that we do get. In Northwest Urbana, we just recently had a very big lighting project that we installed there. If it's a safety issue, an actual issue, a measured safety issue, then we would respond. But if it's not, we take it under advisement and we consider it. But at this time, we're fiscally constrained and there's no immediate plans to install lighting. Have any other questions in that area? But that's a good point. And, I think on an intersection by intersection basis, I mean, there are new methods with LED and solar lights that we've looked at. We haven't implemented those for at least beacon lights at the intersections.
On a related note about that High Cross Road
Sure.
project, is High Cross Road itself getting any more of a sidewalk in the section where the road's being redone, or is that still something we've got to put on the list for the future as it develops?
A lot of it is development driven.
Okay.
When you look at Washington, the corner at Washington and High Cross, on the northeast corner over here where the pointer is, just south of Walmart, that's where the new Menards store would be sited if they ever decided to build. Well, they own there. They also own on the northwest corner. They also own on the southwest corner. This is all slated for development plans for major redevelopment, and there would be major site regrading at that time.
Okay.
So if you recalled, I'll slide this down a little bit. On the south end, we installed a multi-use path from Windsor up to just past what was the old TK Wendell's entrance. And we installed a pedestrian bridge there, and we ended it. And basically anything from the north, that it would be driven by development that would occur in that area.
Great.
There are significant grade changes where the site has to be raised and lowered, and if we were to put something in, then we would have to take it back out.
Okay.
The other thing to note is that the previous path that we put, we did that via an agreement with the Illinois Department of Transportation. It's actually located within their property. And those agreements are such that if they say they want us off or they want us to move because they want to widen the road or whatever, we have to do so at our cost. Now what is planned though, if you look up here at, go back over to the right here, at the Walmart corner, there is a plan to, with this project, to extend the sidewalk that currently dead ends at the southeast corner at Walmart up to the University Avenue, which is 150 and 130. And then there will be some pedestrian signals installed with those new signals.
Okay.
The bigger issue, though, that is there is getting them over to the Aldi corner, and that there were no funds to do so to do that. So that's something that I think really needs to be looked at in the future.
Yeah. That's a big ditch. It's a
yeah.
weird spot. It wouldn't be easy.
We actually hired a consultant several years ago. I hired one to, there's a huge culvert that goes across the road, and we have to actually construct a big junction box and wing walls, and it's a very expensive undertaking there. But there is a plan, and I think at some point here, if we get some development rolling, we could certainly apply for ITEP, which is the Illinois Department of Transportation's Transportation Enhancement Program funding, and try to close this gap. And what you often see is, and we talk about this with development, is development moves out, or they're moving along the fringe and developing, or they're filling in gaps, and then we're filling in gaps too as we go. It's not a perfect system, but it's really the only way at this time to get these projects in.
Yeah.
There'll be curb actually out there, so there won't be any shoulders on 130. It's actually curb and gutter with a median all the way through, and it's 4 lanes wide. That's the plan.
Pedestrians will be on the side or in the street.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna
Yeah, go ahead.
back out a little bit. Let's swing down and we'll talk about Windsor Road. We just shut that project down for the winter here on Saturday, and we shifted traffic over. So we have most of the north lanes constructed this year. One key thing though that I wanted to mention here is when we bid the system out, we had vehicle detection loops, and on Ray Street, we have the bike lane that comes down, and then it sort of basically ends and goes into a shared lane type of configuration. One thing that we've done though now is we're seeking a change order in the plans to install a thermal imaging system for our detection system. That thermal imaging system, we just recently installed that at Florida and Philo, which I'll talk about in a minute. And it's really a neat thing that I think the bicycle community should know of, and it's a fairly costly system, but it's a system that is driven by military technology, that it picks up the heat of individuals and of cars, and will actually allow the call to be placed to the controller. So what that means is, even though we don't have bicycle facilities on Windsor Road, when a bicyclist comes up to Windsor Road at any given time without it, and they come up to detector loops, which are inductive loops that have to measure, they're magnetic, and they deal with the metal in a bike, and a lot of times the bikes they're composite bikes, they don't have enough metal, they don't trigger the call. Well, this thermal imaging system will actually pick up the bicyclist and then would place a call, as long as they're within that zone and the zone, we can draw the zone out within the camera there. It's really a neat advanced system, and it's something that not a lot of communities are doing, but we were able to receive favorable bids on this project, and we decided that it was important enough to switch it out here. So we're doing that.
I have a
question about the intersection of Race and Windsor.
Yes.
When the intersection was designed, because there is quite a bit of pedestrian traffic, I thought that the pedestrian, the radius would be designed in such a way that it would give pedestrians better, visibility and reduce the speed that vehicles turn the corner at by, making it an angle that is harder to speed around.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to ask you about the design that is there and how you all arrived at that, because it has a pretty wide radius for turning of vehicles, and I wanted to ask you about that.
The radius that's there is actually the radius that was there before.
Right.
And that is based upon the criteria when you turn from an arterial road to a collector road. There are certain design vehicles that we use for that. Now, what we did do, though, was we did change the handicap ramps to 2-point ramps instead of a single-point ramp. So we actually separated them out. That way the pedestrians can come to those and they're directionally oriented. Instead of coming out, like, say, at an angle to the corner. They actually have their own dedicated ramp if they're heading east or they're heading west. So we did do that. On this type of a class of road, we don't install. It's not a matter. We do not install bump outs, if that's what you're referring to. But we haven't any indication that there's a safety issue either. Now, what we are doing is we're putting in signals, traffic signals with accessible pedestrian signals, which will have countdown timers that have audible and visual cues for the disabled. And that is something that we are doing on every single signal job that we put in. That's just what we do now.
Yeah, that's great.
So as far as speed going around the corner, I don't know of any documented concerns that there is speeding actually happening there. But I mean the radius is what was there before.
Well, with the stop signs, we didn't really have very many crashes there. With the traffic signal, it'll be interesting to see if we have more crashes, because signalized intersections tend to have more crashes than four-way stops do.
Right.
It has been an intimidating place to cross, and I know several people inquired about whether we could have, a pedestrian refuge island in the middle or various other things. And I didn't ask during the initial phases because this was an emergency
Yeah.
Right.
to get this done, and I didn't want to throw any, wrenches into the works. And perhaps if you had asked for changes in how it was designed, that would have slowed the project down as well. I don't know. I just was hoping that we might get a little more pedestrian-friendly design at the intersection. So I was just asking about that.
Yeah, I think actually, in my opinion, we do have a more pedestrian-friendly intersection than we did before, because when you have a four-way stop, there's, the vehicles stop, but you still have to walk across the road, and you're in essence playing Frogger in some ways when you're doing that. Now with this, you ask about a pedestrian refuge island. If we put an island in, then it's mandatory that we have to have push buttons inside that island. So the way we do it now is we have to clear enough time that a pedestrian can walk from one side safely to the other using the criteria. So the criteria, it's like 3.5 feet per second, which is fairly slow. I mean, if you try to walk that slow, but I mean, that's meant for mainly it's caters to the elderly or the disabled.
Yeah.
Right. Now, the other thing of note, down at Vine at Meadowbrook, we're going to be installing what they call RRFBs, which are rectangular rapid
good.
flashing beacons.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Those are a new device. They're currently on Granger near the library, but I think they'll operate much better down here because a pedestrian can put a call, in essence, push a button, and then the signs, they basically have flashing lights on them that will wig-wag, and that'll alert the public that, hey, I want to cross here.
Yeah.
Now there, we do have a pedestrian island that can create refuge, but it's all set to wigwags that you get enough time to cross the road. There's been a lot of inquiry from the public about, well, why don't we just install signals there? Well, again, when we install signals, it goes through a set of national criteria. That way we're consistent with the way everybody does it nationally. And it doesn't meet the guidelines to do so.
I think the rapid flashing beacon that's pedestrian activated will be a big improvement, and I think it meets the needs of people crossing the street there. Since we installed that infrastructure, we haven't had any crashes that I'm aware of. Are you?
No, I think the bigger issue on campus is basically getting students to look up and you know, I mean, sometimes people are critical of students, but I think they're just focused in their life, you know, and they, you know, I think when you're out on the, you know, the rest of us, maybe, you know, we're a little bit more, well, you know, and Lord knows at my age, I know now that I'm not invincible, but when I was 18, 19, 20, you know, I didn't think of those things. But I think that intersection, or that Granger Library, that's a little bit of a difficult crossing. I mean, there's been a lot of things, you know, in pavement lights tried, and those worked good at the beginning, and then they failed and weren't so good so long. So yeah, but I think the RFB, the rectangular rapid flashing, I mean, I think we have to use those at select locations again, but I think this is a good application for that.
I think so too. And the crossing at Granger has worked. We have not had people hit at that location. And when people complain to me about campus, I just tell them that they should plan on driving there as if it's the entire area is a school zone. And that if you want to go fast, you should not drive through campus.
So moving up to Florida and Philo, we installed a new traffic signal system there. That does have that thermal imaging system. We redid the intersection corners there. We did provide bump outs for pedestrians. We do have a lot of elderly and disabled people that use that intersection. So I think that's a very good improvement for pedestrians there at that intersection. Moving up into the core of the city, you know, we have Lincoln Square here where this white square is. You know, on Broadway, we installed the, basically resurfaced the pavement, and at Washington at the T here, and we installed sharrows, you know, throughout there in lieu of basically bike lanes on Broadway. There was much debate about that, and I think you all were aware of that. And but I think in the end, this was a fairly adequate compromise. If you've been through there, you know, at least the sharrows, and then we installed the parking lines instead of ticks, and I think that does constrain the vehicle lane a little bit, and you know, help with at least a visual presence there. At Race there, from the library on down, just to the corner where Lincoln Square is, we did install bike lanes there, you know, all the way through, and we more importantly resurfaced the road. And when I say that, it's because a smooth road, you know, provides a smooth ride for bicyclists too. And then Illinois Street, west of there, that one, we had a significant amount of inquiries about that project. And there are a lot of people that use that section of Illinois to get to and from Urbana, the core, to Campus Town. Over here at Kohler and Busey in Iowa, those streets were showing a significant amount of deterioration. They were primarily in residential streets, but Kohler is actually a bike route, so that helps in that area. And then Busey from Washington down to Iowa, and then Iowa from Lincoln over to Busey, that's a bike route also. So those were resurfaced, and we've actually got a lot of good feedback from those too. You know, I think people are happy to see some improvements there. At Goodwin and Green, here was another signal system. This one we didn't put in the thermal imaging, but we did the detector loops, but we put in a pedestrian scramble, which is, you know, it's basically where you shut down all lanes of traffic and you allow in this case, students, a significant amount of students to cross at a diagonal across the pavement. So that was a big project there. Here in a little bit, we'll talk about the MCOR project and, you know, the implications of that one. Going back through here, one item of note is when you see this purple dash, those are patching jobs that we weren't able to get to this year. In our defense, my boss, the Public Works Director, tells us that last year in 2014 was probably the greatest construction year in the history of the city of Urbana. When you look at the magnitude of construction that was taken on. And I have a staff, including myself, of 4. So we talk about being shortchanged. I mean, we have a lot, and we do most of our work in-house design-wise. Then we also manage consultants, and they do design and things like that. So with Bradley, that is a high priority project for us this year, where we're going to go and patch that road. And we might as well talk about it here, that what's going to drive that is the pavements and, needs repaired, but we're going to install bike lanes. So we're going to put bike lanes in from Lincoln all the way down to the west city limits there, which is just west of Carver there.
Yeah.
That's also a road that I personally have had it where I've been driving, and it's not really marked very well, and I've had people pass me on the right.
Yeah.
It's that's a very uncomfortable feeling when that happens, We'll put bike lanes in that'll help the delineation there.
Yeah.
There are some kind of different turn lane things happening to the west there. We'll clean some of those things up. So I just wanted to share with you
Great.
that, and we have other patching areas that we're going to do things too.
And do you, when you get closer to construction of that project, do you coordinate with Champaign Public Works to let them know our timing and this is coming? I know they've talked about bike lanes or some kind of infrastructure on their side of Bradley so that it somehow will, in the grand ideal world, connect up so that the bike lanes we build would flow into some facility they'd build. But have you had any contact or give them a heads up that this is now on our side becoming real?
We'll give them a heads up, but we do a pretty good job moving quick here on our infrastructure, so we move ahead of them, and
Yeah.
we're not going to let them. They'll do their thing, but
Yeah,
we're going to do
yeah.
it. But what's a good point? We'll let them know, and then they
Okay.
can. But I think in their section, it's marked better, a 4-lane section
Yeah.
than ours. But that's a good point, and we'll keep that in mind.
Okay.
We had other miscellaneous. I won't talk about those. There's some other blue sections in there that we just had deteriorated pavement, and we had to fix those pieces, throughout there. But I'm going to switch gears here and go to 15 now.
Yeah. Any other questions about that 14 map before we switch? Okay, great. Thanks. Go right ahead.
With 15, this is where we're heading here, and we've talked about Bradley. And Bradley, when I get that designed, I'll bring it to BPAC to get, to give you guys an idea and get your feedback on what you think of that design, too. So again, we'll start up here at the kind of work clockwise around the city. Right now, we have hired a consultant for improvements to Airport Road up by Frasca. We were able to secure an economic development program grant because Frasca is going to undertake a major expansion there. That's an old oil and chip road again that is showing deterioration. We're going to replace that with a 3-lane concrete road. That road is a bike route, but with that, the bicycle master plan shows a side path there, or a multi-use path. We're going to plan for that. There's no money for that, but we will plan for it. Make sure that we acquire in the pieces that we do need to acquire the proper amount of right-of-way, we will do so. And we will plan for it so that in the future it will make it easier to put that in. We have also done intersection design studies at Willow and Airport and at US 45. I was actually reviewing some of them today, and showing that multi-use path crossing 45. So that will ideally be done next year. Because I'll just warn you, because it was such a big year last year, this is a little thin compared to last year, So the bar got set high last year, and now we're going to be under that bar. Again, 130 will finish up, 150 to St. Joe will finish up, and then hopefully, like Cynthia said, we can get they can get the Kickapoo Trail going, which is an exciting project sometime here in the near future. Going back over, we will finish up Windsor Road then next year. That'll take most of the year, although the contractor's putting together an aggressive schedule, with that project. So we'll finish that project next year. We had tentatively the resurfacing of Springfield Avenue and Lincoln Avenue planned to start the design on that. That is a possible deferment, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And then the main two projects, and my mouse is kind of sticking here a little bit, is up at Crystal Lake Park on Broadway. There is a brick section of road that is really one of our worst streets that is deteriorating really significant. I mean, it's really bad. And our plan is, right now we're doing the preliminary work on that, is to ask council to replace those bricks with a concrete pavement. Now, what we're also doing is partnering with the Park District to install an 8-foot sidewalk from their entrance, which is just west of Stebbins there. It doesn't show on the map, all the way up to their other entrance to the pool there. That's, we're talking a little over 2,000 feet of sidewalk there, and we would cost share with them with that, and that's an exciting project. And I think with the brick replacement too, to concrete, and it's basically fiscally driven, that will help bicyclists, quite frankly. Heading further north, one of the projects that is also, it's a quite costly project, is to resurface Lincoln Avenue from basically where the Harley-Davidson shop is all the way to the north end, and that is in preparation of the extension of Lincoln Avenue, which would be connecting up to Olympian Drive, which I didn't mention, which is under construction. Olympian's here. There'll be a new piece of Lincoln that's currently under design with a consultant, but this piece down here, we've got, it's showing severe distress, and we have to get that up to speed. There are no bike improvements planned for this section here. There are some near Super Value. There's a sidewalk that's consistently flooding. We'll fix that. We do look at those pedestrian improvements and try to fix things that are broke and everything. Now on Lincoln, there was a change in the typical section. We say a typical section, it's like the lane widths and the shoulders and stuff. And at Lincoln, council did ask for a change from curb there to shoulder. So we are putting in 6-foot asphalt shoulders there on Lincoln, north of Saline Court up to Olympian Drive. The deferment I was talking about with Springfield and Lincoln is just basically, it's another fiscal issue, and a lot of that's driven by this other project, which we'll talk about in a minute, which is the MCOR project, which is the Multimodal Corridor Enhancement Project. And the reason I say a deferment is because we have a local share that we have to come up with, and we have projects that have to get set to the side to get this project done. Before I switch to that project and give kind of a 20,000 viewpoint, do you have any questions about 2015 and what we're doing?
Any other questions?
So I was going to ask, if it's not planned, then it's something we ought to take a look at doing, is for the section of Race where we have installed bike lanes, and then from that down to Washington, we need to get sharrows along that section, because there are a lot of bicyclists using it. It's very narrow, and most of the time motorists are respectful of other roadway users, but it's too narrow to be trying to pass along there, and it's not a very long stretch. It's not going to cost people a lot of time.
That's a good point, and I neglected to mention that. I think that is something that I want to do next year. I've been waiting for the master plan to get finalized, which we expect at the beginning of the year. But once that's finalized and we really know, because there is some minor changes to the system, us as staff, we're going to identify gaps, and we'll probably I'll come to BPAC and get some feedback on these easy things that we can do that are really just paint things that are that we can just close the gap on a few things. The other thing we want to do that there's some interest is look at wayfinding signage.
Badly
So
needed.
There, we do have some funding for that. We do have to study it a little bit more and understand, and I think that's something where we'll get some preliminary guidance in the master plan from RPC, but we're going to have to sit down as a group and really understand what's important. What are those things that we want to point people to? Then we've got to identify. We kind of have a handle on our system now, but we got to identify what we got to do to make changes. If it's a bike route sign, do we have to put in new posts to get those in? And that'll be something that staff will do, and then come up with an implementation plan and start implementing wayfinding. Where we're pointing, say, to downtown Urbana or the library or hospitals or whatever, that's done. NACTO, which is a national organization, they've got some decent applications there too. But I think that's something where this commission, can play a valuable role, is to get that kind of feedback, and that's where you should be excited about being involved in something like that.
The other thing I was going to say is that I have bicycled Lincoln several times going out to Prairie Fruits Farms, and so having shoulders will be very nice. But it's not right now. There's not a lot of traffic, but when it gets the connection to Olympian, that's going to change.
Yeah, and it's got a high percentage of truck
Trucks.
traffic because of there's a lot of industry up that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good point.
Okay.
Any other questions on?
Yeah, any others on this? Okay, go right ahead.
So I want to talk about this multimodal corridor enhancement project, which Cynthia knows all about because MTD was the primary sponsor for this project. But I want to give a little bit of just a brief overview here, just to let people know. And this is the new numbering kind of nomenclature here. This is Wright Street. So in essence, to the east of there is Urbana. To the west is Champaign, and really in this area, this is the U of I, and actually all of this area is the U of I. The MTD, in conjunction with the cities of Urbana and Champaign and the University of Illinois, where they were able to secure what they call a Tiger grant for this project. This project is a $34 million multimodal corridor enhancement project. And of that 34 million, 15.7 is a Tiger grant, which is a federal grant, and then the other 19 and so million is a local share. That's where the money comes in, where we talk about deferment. Is making sure that we have that match there. The whole goal of this project is to make this, as it says, multimodal, but basically a high transit corridor, high bicycle use corridor. Enhance the pedestrians, maybe de-emphasize vehicles, and that's primarily the mission of CATS, which is the Campus Area Transportation Study. What I want to talk about a little bit is the impacts, or where the project is as a whole, and where we're going in the future with this, because this is a really big undertaking. We recently selected a consultant to take on the lead for this project, and they have the resources, and that consultant is actually, they're starting work now. And just to give you a big picture, this thing will wrap up in 2019. So here we are in 2014 with the preliminary work just starting almost as we speak, and the construction being wrapped up at 2019. Now we have an obligation date of 2021, but we're trying to shoot that, be that ahead of that. But these projects, one is Green Street from Wright to Lincoln. And the big thing there is basically what we're looking at is a 4-lane road that would in essence have vehicle lanes on the inside, a bus lane or a bus bike lane on the outside, or just a bike bus vehicle lane. There'll be transit priority or preemption at the signals, which allow the transit system to move through. East of Lincoln, which is Project 5 up to Race, that project would in essence install bike lanes all the way through there. There's some challenges there to do that, but that's the goal at this point. these other projects are combination City of Champaign and the U of I, Project 4, where again, they're looking at, bike lanes and such like that. Same thing with Project 3. Project 2 in Champaign's already pretty much designed. But the schedule on this is Projects 1, 2, and 3, basically starting construction in the summer, fall of 2016. Then 4, which is the Wright Armory piece, starting construction in spring, summer of 2017, so that following year. And then the last piece would be the piece of Green east of Lincoln, which would be the spring of 2018.
And for that last piece, is there parking removal that
Yes.
we'll all have to discuss?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Now, the consultant is a team made up of Clark Dietz, which is local in Champaign, and Hanson Engineers. The main group there is out of Peoria, but they have hired within their group T.Y. Lynn.
Okay.
And
great.
T.Y. Lynn is as Cynthia knows, is basically a powerhouse multimodal consultant. Some of you may know John LaPlante, and John's on that, is available as a resource. And Nate Roseberry is also a national expert, and he's involved in the process.
Wow.
So we're going to be looking for their help with that to help justify why we have to remove it. And maybe there's alternates to, we investigate, there too. And we want to check that out too. I'm sure Cynthia's got some things she wants to talk about.
Yeah, I'd already talked to Bill Gray about this, that I wondered if there were options such as allowing parking on Sundays for the churches along the road from, 8 to 12 or 1 or whatever. It's something to look at. Also to have one-on-one conversations with all of the businesses along there before we do anything. And during the interviews, the consultants talked about that being part of what they were proposing to do. We have to find places for shared parking, and I go to a church that's on Green Street, and we only have about 20 parking spaces. The church has worked with surrounding businesses, and they allow us to use their parking lots on Sundays, and we reserve that space by cooperation for handicapped and those who have mobility issues, so that those 20 spaces right next to the church are easy for people to use. And so we can share those kinds of ideas with other entities, but I think we have to talk with people one-on-one about that project, and we have to look at the intersection of Wright and Green in particular very carefully. A design that takes bicyclists to the intersection and then doesn't tell them how and when and where to cross isn't going to work well. We've got too much intensity there. Nate, who's with T.Y. Lynn, has been the person involved with all of the recent strides forward that Chicago has made in infrastructure. And Champaign-Urbana is not as difficult to work with as Chicago. I think we can all say that. And so I feel some confidence about their ability to help us and advise us on this project and help us get where we need to go. One of my goals, this was the third time, if we did it several times, that we worked on this grant application, and we pulled out all the stops this time in putting the grant application together. And one of our goals all along has been to address the safety issues on Green and on Wright in terms of the mix of bicyclists, pedestrian, and buses, because the intensity of pedestrian transit and bicycle traffic there is equivalent to inside the loop in Chicago. We've got an enormous amount of pedestrian traffic. It's a very intense urban environment, which is very different than any place else in the community. And it's all right there. And so this is hopefully going to help us rebuild that infrastructure in a way that will be safe and allow for all of those modes to get people where they need to go in a timely fashion into the future, not just something that works for now and then we have to think about it again in 10 years.
Yeah.
The other thing with this project has a very aggressive schedule. Now, with that, we will be seeking public input, and I think because of that and the aggressive schedule, we'll be asking BPAC members to come to public meetings to give their input. It will be challenging. I don't know if we're going to be able to bring the design here to hash out, but we will have public meetings that everybody can come to, and we do want to get that public when we do get basically the initial study done. I'll share that information with the commission. But the best way for your involvement is to we'll send you information and actually attend these meetings. Yeah. So you can have input, and that's really a great way. And then feel free to, and just like with the public, and my email's on the website, you can always send me an email, and if you have something that you're seeing you don't like, I would imagine we'll probably be setting up a website for this project as we go along. So it's hyper aggressive, but we want to do it and want to do it right.
Yeah. Well, great, thanks. Yeah, definitely send us invites and things. And you're right. If rather than us as our own commission this is such a large community project, rather than us trying to have our own meetings about it, if we can come to the public meetings and participate, just let us know when.
Yeah.
And on the parking removal, I think help us be strategic about when to, maybe talking to businesses first or doing things before it just starts going to traffic commission and snowballs.
Right.
The last few parking removal discussions have just been more difficult maybe than they had to be, and if anything we can do to help explain proactively to people if we do have to remove parking, why and where, and that we considered the alternatives,
Right.
Let us know so that doesn't hang up implementation.
Okay.
I'll just add quickly, I taught a class at the university this fall in the planning program called Active Transportation, and we did a project that involved looking at a multimodal center for downtown Urbana, and I had them do walkability audits of the entire area in it and do bicycle level of service analyses. And they did Green Street is one of them, and they said that having the bike lanes on Green Street was a no-brainer in terms of the safety improvement. In fact, one of them had the language in there, it would be foolish not to put these in. And I did suggest to her that different language might be more appropriate for those kinds of reports. But it was the students just really, in looking at it, felt very strongly. They did use the analysis that the League of Illinois Bicyclists created in doing the calculations, and Ed Barsati came down and talked to the class. And they also used that street a lot and also saw it as a key connection for bringing students from campus into downtown Urbana to shop and eat and do various things. So those are all additional factors we need to think about as we look at this. Is one of the goals of this project is to bring that connectivity to downtown Urbana and make it clear for people on campus how do you get to downtown Urbana and what we've got here.
Yeah, those are all good points, and I do think being able to, when we come to Traffic Commission or other places, being able to say, well, the BLOS, if we leave the parking on the street, would be whatever, score a C- or whatever in the system. The BLOS, if we could remove parking, would be an A or whatever, and make it that much safer. I don't think we've done it in that scoring way before to kind of show both options, but just to help people really understand that based on an official metric of safety, that it really makes a difference not to have a row of cars there opening doors. Anyway, we'll have, it sounds like, a couple years to work on that, but
yeah, it's coming. It's a really exciting project. I mean, overall, it'll be a nice improvement to the core of both cities and the U of I. That's really all I had. I just wanted to do an overview. It took a little bit longer than I wanted to, and probably more than you wanted it to, but give you an idea of what we got going on.
Any other questions or comments about MCOR or any of these construction projects?
I was going to ask when we might have the opportunity to hear more about the sidewalk inventory. I know they're still doing that inventory. There was a grant, for those of you who don't know, there was a grant that the Regional Planning Commission got, and they are inventorying and putting in detailed information on sidewalk infrastructure for a GIS database for both cities, and we're going to have a complete database. And so I'm anxious to know when we might be able to have some information about that. And once we have that, I hope we will then proceed to go ahead and apply to be a walk-friendly community, because I think that we can. I think that we can do that. I know we would like to already have a pedestrian plan in place when we apply for that, but I think if we say that we're planning to have one, we're working toward it, and this is our first step, we can still get there, but we can take a look at that. When I brought it up before, the response was, we don't really have an inventory of our infrastructure, so it'll be hard for us to do this, and so we've been kind of waiting for this to happen.
Yeah. Do you know, roughly ETA-wise, when that is that still underway, the inventory's happening, and that'll come back here at some point?
Yeah, it's still underway. Brad Bennett, a colleague of mine, is heading that up within Public Works.
Great.
When we get farther along with it, I think it'd be an excellent idea to come back to the commission, and and there has been some talk internally, I think, about a master plan, and we've also talked about, I think what Cynthia's point is well taken there about we're in fantastic shape with the bicycle infrastructure, but there could be some lifting up of the pedestrian system.
Mm-hmm.
In the end, we have a greater mode share of pedestrians than we do bicyclists. So,
yeah.
We can strive for platinum, and that's a great thing, and really we'll take our direction from council. They're the ones that direct staff, but also, I think we need to relook at the pedestrian system too, and where can we improve there. Ultimately comes down to money though too, and that's a big issue.
Yeah.
But maybe we can, at least if with a plan, or then we can at least strategically do improvements as we're going through, and the money is available. So, all right.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Craig. Our last item tonight is about sidewalk snow removal, and Cynthia had sent around a PDF that we got copies of here on our desks. So Cynthia, go right ahead.
Some of you saw this presentation last year, but we have some new people, so I will run through it again. I won't take up a lot of time. But what I wanted to talk about is whether we would like to make a recommendation to go forward to the City Council that we look at how to create a snow removal encouragement program. Even in communities that have ordinances, you still need this component. And so I just started off with a quote here that, removing snow from the sidewalk is part of complete streets. We have a complete streets policy, and this is one of the pieces that you need to have in place to really fully implement a complete streets program and policy. We have 30% of our residents walking, biking, or taking the bus, and I think it's 16% are walking. That's twice what we have had counted for bicyclists. And it's I think the second mode share next to driving. I think transit's 12%. So if you add all that together, and you get 30% of your residents that are being forced into the street when our sidewalks are snow and ice covered, that presents obstacles for people who have mobility issues and safety issues for other people. I went out one day and took pictures, and this is the kind of stuff I saw. I also saw a mom and a little girl. I don't have a pointer on this, but this very same sidewalk, they were trudging along it with their groceries to get to their house, which is the house that you can see. I don't think this has the mouse. There it is, right here. They were trying to get here, And because we have such constricted right-of-way here, all the snow had been plowed onto the sidewalk, and they were really struggling to get to their front door to go in their house. And that's on Lincoln Avenue. And you can see one of the people, it was piled so high at one point that they dodged into the street to get around the pile. And these are college students. So these were not people like me who, climbing over the pile of snow is a little more challenging for. This is Washington. There were people walking in the street in both directions. There were businessmen with briefcases. This is Washington and Philo. And yeah, it was all over town, and it might not happen this winter, but we've had several winters now where we've had snow on the ground for extended periods of time. These are kids from the middle school walking north on Broadway. This area had better snow removal. The State Street neighborhood has developed a culture of snow removal, which is what we need, I think, to have happen in the rest of the community. So ordinances are recommended to address these problems, but they are not enough by themselves. And so you need to have other programs in place. And so I went through and brought forward other programs. It's a whole range of how people do it. But I really like the concept of the Snow Angels program, which has volunteers who sign up to clean specific segments of sidewalks and driveways. And they have like a Snow Angel of the Month that they highlight someone who's been a fabulous volunteer. So it's a little like adopting a street for trash removal, and some communities actually do it that way. So these are some quotes from that program. It's a program where neighborhood-based volunteers are paired with seniors or residents with limited mobility in need of snow removal services, and it's an opportunity for neighbors to engage with one another and help those in need. And I think that's happening informally in our community in some locations already. In Ontario, of course, they have snow on the ground for extended periods every year, and so they also have a program there, and they leave a note telling people that they've done it. They let people who are 14 years of age or older volunteer, so this could also, there are some programs in the community for teenagers that might be able to volunteer for this. In Columbia, Missouri, much closer to home, they did adopt a sidewalk as a pilot program. And so, maybe we want to start with a pilot program. And so they take designated areas, and I think that's also key for us to think about. I would like to see us designate safe routes to school routes and major bus routes as the areas that we would prioritize for the snow removal and volunteer recruitment. So the city identifies the priority routes, and they actually provided snow shovels. I don't know if we want to do that, but I just thought that was an interesting feature to their program. In Lincoln, Nebraska, they have churches that assist with a lot of their programs, so that's another group that we can take a look at, and they also talked about theirs as it's being a Snow Angels program. Davenport, Iowa has this, and they connect volunteers with individuals in need of service. So that's another model and something that we could consider. In Gary, Indiana, they have a youth program that specifically involved in snow removal, and they put together either individuals or teams to help. So rather than having people walking in the street, it would be nice if we could walk on the sidewalks. And as you can see, they've done snow removal on this stretch of sidewalk, probably with a snowblower. And it's not down to the pavement. That's not always necessary, but it's passable and people can get through. This is a behavior that is actually not technically legal now, that really upsets me. This is along Anderson, right across the street from Wiley Elementary, and someone had cleared the sidewalk, and then the people here had taken the snow off of their driveway and piled it onto the sidewalk. So someone had cleared it, and they piled their snow in such a way as to make it impassable for the kids who are walking to school. And that's the kind of awareness that we need to be having more conversations with people about, perhaps a conversation about, this actually, I think by city ordinance is not legal. You cannot pile snow onto the city right-of-way, which the sidewalk is. This was Legal Issues in the News is on WILL AM radio, and she did a piece called Slippery Slope in January of 2014, which I really appreciated, and I asked her if I could paraphrase her commentary. And she said, that property owners are required to keep property free and clear of foreseeable harm dependent on weather conditions, and that allowing dangerous accumulations of snow and ice on property may put property owners on a slippery slope under Illinois law. Because what she said is if people have a reasonable expectation of being able to get to a business in particular, and it's not cleared, that they might have legal grounds for taking action. So they passed the Snow and Ice Removal Act. The Illinois legislature did. Very specifically says that property owners who remove snow or ice from sidewalks will not be liable for injuries unless their acts are willful or wanton. And this is an urban legend that raises its head every winter. I think people believe it because it's convenient and it's easier for them to say, oh, I can't do that, I might get sued, when in fact it is not true. So, in fact, she cited a case in which someone did sue because there was a mound of snow created. Actually, what they did was take a mound of snow from a snow removal process and put it in a location that made area impassable. So our ordinances require property owners within our snow removal districts to clear the adjacent public sidewalk of snow and ice after the Public Works Director issues a declaration. They have 24 hours. And it was interesting recently. I work part-time with a national firm now, and there was an email that went around asking about that time limit, and I said, well, I think having 24 hours after the snow stops is what a lot of places do. And they said, well, that's unreasonable because a lot of people depend on transit and other things. We need to have them clear their sidewalks right away. And here we require them to remove it within 6 hours. And so I thought, okay, there's a difference in in culture from one place to the other. So the areas that are now require snow removal are the University District, the South Philo Road District, and the Downtown District. And I'm proposing that we take a look at how to create a program that would encourage snow removal and recruit volunteers to help us in areas where we have people who need access that the ordinances don't apply. We did receive a Safe Routes to School grant. It hopefully will be available by next fall. We can run some of our bus boards and our radio ads again. We do still have yard signs. We've got plenty of yard signs that we will offer to distribute through the schools again. And we ask them to then distribute those. But if you know a location where a yard sign encouraging snow removal would be effective, you can call. We have a website. You can also email through there. And this is what it looks like. Jan, the marketing director for MTD, designed this, and I think she did a fabulous job. It's been very popular. The approach is to thank people for clearing their sidewalks and to help people to understand it's about your neighbors and about our children and about safety, and to encourage and also to thank and acknowledge the people who are clearing sidewalks. That's our billboard and what our bus boards also look like, and that's one of our yard signs. It's interesting, they really do stand out in the snow, the little kids in the pink. You wouldn't think that it would be that effective, but it really does stand out. So I am happy to answer any questions. I also provided you with the handout. It's a white paper on snow removal practices and policies for bicycle infrastructure, which is as we build more infrastructure, something that we will have to address more directly. And it took practices both nationally and internationally and looked at them. It was updated just this last year, so it's pretty current in terms of different approaches. And one of the things I found I went to a session on winter snow removal, is that how you do it very much depends on how much snow you get, how long it stays on the ground, how much freeze and thaw you have. And many places do not remove on, for example, a shared use path, they do not remove it all the way down to the paving because of the freeze and thaw issues. They actually groom it. I don't know what the best options are for us. I think that's something we would have to take a closer look at. With freeze and thaw, if you leave snow on the ground, you also then have the problem of it then turning into a solid sheet of ice. So those are all questions that we would have to take a look at, is what is the safest and best way. I know already Public Works does treatment of roadways when there's less than 4 inches. Is that what I remember?
I don't know the answer to that.
I think there's pre-treatment, because I had asked, I think they do pre-treatment, and especially on the bike lanes on roadways when there's a smaller amount of snow, and they plow them when there is in more than that amount. I don't remember numbers very well, but that was what I remembered.
I would suggest to you that if you have any kind of inquiry about infrastructure removal of snow, that you contact John Collins, our operations manager.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I don't know that answer is because that's not my division.
You don't do it, yeah.
Right. I mean, we install it, but we don't maintain it. But John, if you were willing to send him an email and discuss it, I think he would be willing to meet with you and talk about how he goes about it and his crews and things like that. We can talk about what we'd like to do, but I think there are issues that really only John knows that and I don't want to speak for John.
He'll have a lot of good information for us, and I think we have to partner with other community organizations to do an encouragement program. I don't think that it's something that could be done entirely with relying on city staff, because the city is constrained right now financially. But I think it's worth trying to have some conversations with organizations if the city can help spearhead those conversations and look at what our options are. Somebody has to have some kind of umbrella organization that provides, people with some structure for doing the program. But I would like for us to have a conversation if possible, and I would like for BPAC to say that we would like to have that conversation and ask the city council to think about this as an idea. So that was my request, and I don't know if it's something that we can do now or if we wait. I don't know how to approach it, but I wanted to bring it up again because I did present this last February, and we're starting into snow season again.
Yeah. Any questions first off for Cynthia? I wonder, the Snow Angels program, and especially the encouragement side of this, last time you talked about it and this time, seems like it may be a way that with a small amount of effort and more about coordination and kind of marketing and getting out the word, that we could help neighbors be thinking of doing this for their other people on their street or clearing the bus stop at the corner. It's up to this group, but I mean, if it's an easy thing for us to pass a motion and say that we would ask City Council to take a look at Snow Angels and these kind of programs and get on their agenda at least, and have a time where Cynthia and any of us who want to show up could come and at least maybe talk through these examples and let them see this possibility and talk about whether it's something that the city, and maybe by finding other partners, they could help do. So
This may be asking a lot, or I'll just throw it out there. I don't know if it would be doable, but what if we got some of those postcards and gave them to students actually, so that they could personally thank, maybe making them as thank you cards, so that students on their ways to school, students on their way to school could actually leave a note in a mailbox saying thank you, or for shoveling your walk or something like that. And I think for them to see children, I think that would connect that for a lot of people. I think we're much more willing to do things for children than adults.
We
Or
have
even-
some postcards left, and we did have postcards, and we asked the school to work with their PTA or other parents to get the postcards out, particularly targeting the routes that they were interested in. Yankee Ridge did that. We went and presented to them a couple of years ago, and they had a really active PTA, and they took the flyers and the postcards and the signs, and it did have a noticeable impact on the snow removal on the approaches to the school. 'Cause a lot of children do walk to that school. So that was, I think probably you want to work with the PTAs. I don't know if you want to have, I mean, with our walking school buses, it's something we might be able to do if they were operating in the winter. Right now they're not, but probably there would be concerns about having children approach houses and leave notes.
Yeah.
I guess I mean that with the parent or something.
Yeah. Craig.
Fahmy found from our city website that when the snow removal began, there's a Know About Snow PDF on the website. So when there's less than 2 inches of accumulation and roads are hazardous, salt is spread
Yes.
to prevent ice in major traffic lanes. In heavier snow events of 2 inches or more, the city works around the clock to get the streets plowed and cleared.
Okay.
So 2
I
inches.
knew there was a number of
Okay.
inches that were involved. I just remember the
Yeah.
number correctly.
Well, another thing, Carrie, along the lines of what you were saying with postcards, I mean, another thing maybe the city could help do is consider a simple sort of postcard mailing with community development's help, maybe getting some of the addresses of houses that are right along walk to school routes within, say, 3 blocks of an elementary school, and even do kind of a targeted little postcard mailing to homes to say, hey, winter's coming, you're on a snow route, the kids use your sidewalk to walk to school every day.
And phrasing it in a positive way, like, thank you for doing
Yeah,
it.
yeah. And if you need help, reach out to your neighbors, or if we do have a number to call or
a
something,
good one.
then call a number. But even if not, reach out to your neighbors, make sure you all have a plan
Help
of
each
who's
other.
going to help your whole block get cleared. Because even if 1 or 2 people don't do it, it makes all your efforts useless if the kids have to go out in the street for a few houses along your stretch of the block. So pointing those things out in a simple way could be that with a couple $100 of mailing and printing costs, you could hit at least some key walk routes next to elementary schools. And anyway, I'm just thinking of other kind of simple things to get this message out in a positive sort of marketing encouraging way. Craig?
Cynthia, with the Snow Angels, was it by neighborhood, or was it by like neighborhood association groups, or just
It
blocks?
varied from
or-
one community to the next. I sort of liked what Columbia had done of identifying their priority areas and then working with volunteers. And the way in which they worked with volunteers varied a lot from city to city. I think that here I would reach out to community organizations, churches, PTAs, a variety of other organizations. I know the school district would partner with us in that effort because they have worked very closely with us to set up a program, and I think would start with conversations and say, we're interested in doing this. Is this something you think your organization would be interested in? Before we try to establish a program, kind of get a feel of what we think might work here. And maybe take a closer look at their programs. This is a really quick, 3-4 bullet points of what they're doing. And so we could maybe get more information on, I've included the links so it's easy to go in and take a look at some of their materials and see what we think would work best for our community. And there was a fairly broad range of, in one place it actually was very interesting. The program, I'm trying to remember now since I did this last year, the program was actually run by churches, which I thought was interesting. And how that got started, I do not know. I think in our case we need to take a look at it being a bigger umbrella, it would be nice to have a program that's got some connection with the city and the school district, so that, and I like the idea of the prioritization of areas that we know we have a lot of pedestrians that need to use the sidewalks. And we've done that with the ordinance in requiring the snow removal for those areas, but it didn't go to the school level. I know that that was part of the conversation, and they felt like to get it passed, they needed to restrict it to those initial areas. But I think for schools and major transit routes, people really need to be able to access that.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, what's the sort of feeling of the commission? Is this something that you want us to make a simple motion on and invite Cynthia, if you're willing, to come to city council and give the presentation there and kind of come on some night and talk about it, to do that? Or I don't know, what's the sense of the group? I know we're down a few members, but
Do we have any ideas as far as who might be interested in doing this? Like you've mentioned all the different cities and how they've done it. Do we see churches mentioning this, or are we just
Well,
drumming?
I don't think they've been approached. I think that's why I was suggesting that we might have some of those conversations, but we have to have, the city's leadership has to be interested in this being something that we make an effort to initiate in terms of conversation.
Mm-hmm. Do you need to talk to some of the, I mean, at least get some movement though first before you go to council, just to have some interest from some groups to
Well,
help?
I know that the school district is interested in seeing this happen, and the PTAs are interested in seeing this happen. I mean, we could try having conversations with the organizations, but I think they're going to ask us back, well, who's doing it?
Mhm.
And I think if we could say the city's, exploring the idea of setting up this sort of a program, and I can't go and say that at this point. I don't have the authority to say the city is considering this program. I think it would be with authorization of city council to take a look at whether we wanted to have those conversations, explore the idea of a program.
I think either way it works. I think it is very likely to happen. I think that we do have some grassroots. I know, like in Runa, we do. I feel like if we weren't quick to get it done, somebody actually would shovel our sidewalk. And so I feel like there's different places where there is kind of a norm developing, and so kind of building on what we have. You might find people who are already doing this and have passion for it and would like to help orchestrate it and make it more grassroots rather than I don't know. I think that would be really exciting to have our community members push forward, and it could be something completely different than any city, the way that they've done it, because it has our community's thumbprint on it.
Mm-hmm.
So either way, I think it would be good. I think we have a lot of very generous people. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it can't hurt to start the conversation with city council, even if it's very preliminary, and saying, well, here's what we found some other cities doing, and if they want, if any of them, if it sparks some excitement or interest, and they say, you know what, it's worth asking for some more conversations with the school district or others to see if there is other interest or other partners who want to help do some of the coordination.
And the mayor has a advisory group that she went to for those initial conversations, and I don't remember the name of that group.
The Neighborhood Safety Task Force, and I don't know whether it's still meeting regularly, but that was the group that originally worked on the snow removal ordinance, the actual rules enforcement part of it. I don't know whether that group has met, so.
Well, maybe what we could do is, if the group is willing to, make some sort of a motion, that we approach the mayor's office about this and ask her, does she want to bring that group back together and have a conversation about this idea, or is it a conversation we want to have with city council? And we just want to explore ideas and options. See if there is a way that we can help coordinate a community conversation.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. Does somebody want to make a motion to that effect?
So just to be clear, we would like to speak before the council about moving in some direction to have a plan, though we don't know a plan,
Yeah.
to get the conversation going, to start doing some grassroots sort of
Yeah.
community.
I think I could propose that we make a motion to initiate a conversation with the mayor's office about the idea and how we could move forward with a community conversation.
Yeah. That seems reasonable. Okay, a motion by Cynthia here. Does someone want to second that? Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Any nays? Okay. Then maybe what, yeah, we'll do is I'll talk, Craig, to you and Fami more, and we can just see if we should call Jolinda, let her know, and kind of
I don't know if
figure out
this
if this is something, if they want to see the presentation on snow angels, or have it come some night at city council as a kind of information item and say, here's what we've learned.
or
Just
even
how
to
they'd like us
PTA
to
meetings
approach
and
it.
stuff.
Yeah. We could
So
approach
would
it.
this be separate from potentially doing a mailing of thinking, or should we?
Yeah, I think this would come first, and I mean, if there's interest in this kind of enforcement, then the idea of doing a mailing is maybe one particular implementation plan of the way to kind of get the word out. But I think generally talking about the snow angels concept and things we've learned from other cities, and seeing how much interest there is in that would be a good start. Okay, well, thanks, Cynthia. That is our last business item for tonight. So there are no other items on our agenda. Are there any announcements that board members want to share before we adjourn?
Do you want? We
Craig?
need to talk about the 2015 meeting dates? I guess we need to talk about the 2015 meeting dates.
Okay.
Just if we want to continue with the same schedule monthly, the third Tuesday at 7 p.m.
Yeah. I think in general, obviously that works for most of the people who are here. I know we have a few people absent, and but most people have been able to make it pretty routinely. So I guess I'm comfortable with that, but do other committee members have any feelings about meeting times, nights, arrangements, anything we can improve? Okay. Okay. Carrie?
I guess the only thought is that when we've had joint meetings on Thursdays, that was a little difficult. This semester will be a lot easier, but I actually had classes and it was very difficult
okay, yeah.
to go. But that would be a separate matter, I guess.
Yeah. Those are always tricky to schedule and, pretty infrequent, so. Okay, great. Any other announcements? Okay. Well, thank you. This, is our last meeting of the year, so I hope everybody has a safe holiday, safe travels, and please shovel and drive safely if we do get some snow and ice here. And with that, I will declare us adjourned for the night. Thanks.